Today we're making Ron Weasley's wand. He had a couple of them. Lots of little details in here. Interested? Here we go. I started out with these Death Eater wands. Then I made this Harry Potter wand with a rock or a gem in the end, using a natural stick. Then I made a Harry Potter version that lights candles. Now I'm up to the Ron Weasley style wand. I'll post links to the builds for these other wands below in case you're interested. For this wand build, you're gonna need a 5/16 inch rod, some Super Sculpey. I'm really liking this stuff. It's kind of soft. I wrap it up in some plastic wrap, and it took about one line all the way down to make something like this. But various colors of brown. Some clay shaping tools. I actually made these out of some nails and a dowel, so it doesn't have to be expensive. A lot of these holes were just made like this. You don't have to buy real tools, although these help. These were like $5 at Harbor Freight. I'll post below. Optional tool, not mandatory, but certainly helpful. If you're gonna make all these details in here, is some sort of Dremel and a sanding sponge. Unfortunately, I lost all the steps of pulling this off and placing it on the raw stick and carving this all out initially. But the techniques were very similar to what I did here and on this Death Eater wand. So if you wanna see the details on that, you can check out the videos below. I'll also be doing that on the Elder wand and other wands I do. I'll make sure to have these steps in there. After we got done baking it, I realized the stick came out, and so did the marble. It's actually a good thing, because what's going to happen is we can paint the sticks separately and paint it up this way. You can see some scrapes and dimples. Instead of going with a straight or tapered wand, some of the wands actually have a little bit of grooves and sanded out pieces. So we used the sander and a little bit of filing, and then we finished it up with a fine sanding sponge, and we got this effect. You can barely see it here, but once we paint it, I think that's going to pop out, and it will give yet another dimension to the wand. It's always a challenge to figure out how far to go on a project. Originally, we just had a bunch of little holes in here. We're painting that black, put the depth in, and then we're going to paint over the top of it. But when I went back and researched Ron's wand, it was more bulbous and there were more grooves. So I went in and used a Dremel tool with this stone grinder and this little etcher. You can barely see that. And I went through and just kind of made some details, made the holes deeper. And then I'm going to paint this all black and then top coat it with a lighter color, more in line with Ron's wand. And I went through here and I just kind of outlined all the grooves that I had made to give me a sense of where everything was. I'm using this black basic acrylic paint. It's funny how you sometimes learn things by accident. The very fact that I didn't have the stick on here has allowed me to rotate and work on it in a much different way than if it was connected to the wand stick. For this fine detail work, I'm using a number 3 brush. So here's the plan. We're going to do coffee bean for the stick of the wand. We're going to do real brown for this part of the wand, and then coffee latte for this part of the wand. We'll start with top first because it's the lightest color. What we don't want to do is fill in the holes. So we're going to just do this really top level and let the black in the holes shine through. Okay, so we're going to dry brush this a little bit so we don't get it in the holes. See how the holes are popping? You really don't want to go in the holes or the cracks if you can avoid it. Next is real brown. A little bit of contrast. Going to come out like this, but not as dark as coffee bean. Lots of thin coats. Trying to keep the texture going. Right to the edge. So this is a glossy paint. We'll put it on there, let it dry a little bit, and then we'll rub it off to get the ridges. First round's just probably going to soak up the paint. We've sanded this down really good, but still. If it becomes too soaked in and we can't wipe it off, then we'll just use a light sanding sponge. Just an ever so slightly damped paper towel and trying to get a little bit of wear to show that the wand has been around for a while. Yeah, I'm kind of liking that right there. Just a little hint on the arches. It's the next day. I've let it dry overnight. I'm going to use a black marker to go in there and hit the places that maybe I was too aggressive on the paint to darken them back in. Tried to look as rustic and battled. You look at the line and there's all sorts of different things about the colors. Lighting can change a prop significantly. I wanted to lock all these colors in, so I finished the build by using some clear acrylic spray paint coat. Taped off the end here because I wanted to make sure that there was plenty of room for the marble. My son wants this blue iridescent marble. You could easily put in a clear marble. That would be pretty cool. Here we go, the final commitment. A couple drops of Tite Bond in there is all it's going to take. You can see there's a little bit of glue, the hole on the bottom here. You may be able to see it's got a little bit of an imperfection there. So that's the part that's going to go down into the area that's going to be glued. Just push a little bit on there. I'll wipe that off and it's set. Really like how that turned out. Some people will argue whether or not this is truly Ron's wand. It was inspired by Ron. I wanted to try different things like the pecking because the next thing I'm going to do is the Elder Wand. Thumbs up and comments always appreciated. Thanks for watching, and I'm going to do more wands coming soon.